Welcome to the Inspired Action Podcast. This is where we have motivational, inspiring conversations and interviews that we hope you'll enjoy listening to. If you're interested in creating more balance in your life, understanding your 5-element energetic nature, finding the path of greatest ease,
or releasing the baggage of this lifetime and discovering ancient alchemy that can help you fly in your life, join us and other inspired actioneers on this alchemical, transformational journey.
Welcome to the Inspired Action Podcast. My name is Jay, and we're back today with Pod 55. I have my co-host, as always, Lita Herman, here with me today.
Welcome back, Inspired Actioneers. Today, we're continuing our series on happiness with another challenging topic. It's funny, we're talking about happiness and
happy on the way to happiness.
Happy on the way to happiness. So this time we're talking about our tendrils and tentacles a little further, and now we have triggers added to the list.
Tendrils and tentacles and triggers, oh my.
Oh my.
Tendrils and tentacles and triggers, oh my. Tendrils and tentacles and triggers, oh my.
You can't say it.
We knew there was another category to add to this, right?
Yes.
Another category.
Yes.
We just knew that.
Yes.
It can't be that easy, right?
No, we had to have a third one. So the idea of triggers came from our Facebook podcast group when we asked people what tentacles they're experiencing, and their answers weren't quite tentacles. So we realized we were really talking about triggers that activate tentacles. So we thought a lot about it and realized that these triggers are a really big deal.
Really big deal. And they're everywhere until you start to do this work, this self-cultivation, this work about looking inside and seeing really why you react, why you do the things that we do. But wait, before we get started, let's update everyone on some of our news. We got some fun news coming out this week.
Yes, we're really excited to announce that we're launching 5-Element Fridays.
5-Element Fridays.
With the podcast.
Woohoo! We have so many 5-element enthusiasts all over the world. I just can't, every time I get another email from somewhere in the world, not in Massachusetts.
Other sides of the world,
completely
right?
on the other side of the world, asking us about 5-element stuff and what we think and all different kinds of questions, not just 5 elements. But we decided, how can we bring this into everyone's life a little bit on a regular basis? So we picked 5-element Fridays. We're just going to have a couple thoughts each week about elements, and we will see how it goes. And if we get some feedback, we'll tweak it and make it just right so everyone's happy.
Yeah, just the other day, one of my clients was sitting in my office and saying, "Can't you guys have the podcast every day?" And then we were like, "Oh, wow, how could we do that?" So 5-Element Fridays is
That's
short
the next
segment.
Step.
Yes, it's a short segment. It's going to be like a little tidbit thought about the 5 elements every Friday.
Yeah, so check it out. And that's going to start, hopefully, when you're hearing this podcast, it'll be relatively soon to that. So just keep a lookout. And if you subscribe or to the podcast, you'll automatically get an update when we do that.
Yes. So our intention is to have a community where we can ask questions, answer questions, share thoughts about alchemy and the 5 elements. And this is a great way to do it.
Yeah, you can also go to our Facebook group, Inspired Action Group on Facebook, and we will keep you updated on that. We'll just go out and shout it outside. Hey, it's 5-Element Friday. Go listen to it. All right, anything else, Lita? I got a whole list here, but you go ahead.
Yeah, for new listeners, you can check out our meditation app in the Apple Store or on Google Play for some meditations.
Can I give them a hint what that's going to be?
Yeah.
That's going to be Meditation Mondays coming up.
Oh, yeah, we're working on that.
That'll be in the future, but it's coming, Meditation Mondays.
So we have a lot of new meditations coming soon. So keep an eye out for that. So and some 5-element meditations we're working on. So we're really excited about that.
Maybe we can incorporate that into 5-element Friday too, which maybe the 5-element meditations will be part of the app.
Yeah.
So you could get the Inspired Action app anywhere you get your apps.
Yes.
In the Apple Store.
Yeah.
All right, so we're going to keep you posted. Let's go back to those triggers.
Those pesky triggers.
What triggers people? Triggers. It seems everyone has triggers. Boy, we got a lot of triggers when we started to talk to people. But Lita, I want to know, what really are triggers? Fundamentally, what is a trigger, Lita?
Well, we all know that feeling of being triggered. Something happens and suddenly we're emotional. Something outside affects our internal peace and calm. And now we've got some type of turmoil that wouldn't have been there if that external thing had hadn't come along.
When you say it like that, it just sounds like there's triggers all the time for people throughout the day. Some people are more affected, some people are less affected. But I think the more tentacles you have, remember we talked about the tentacles, the more triggers that really affect you. And now some are big, some are small, but they all can lead to other feelings, right?
Yes, definitely. So if you haven't listened to Pod 54 yet, check it out. You can pause this podcast now.
Right now, go back and listen to 54. Come on back. We'll wait. We're going to wait right now. Go ahead.
Yes.
We're going to wait.
And we'll wait. No, anyway. Okay, so you're back. All right, so listen to the...
Welcome back.
Welcome back. So I hope you listen to the discussion on the tentacles, and especially, the tentacles that we discussed: overindulgence, temptation, greed, jealousy, pride, ego, deep-seated anger, and apathy.
Wow, that is just a lovely list. It kind of sounds like our current state of politics right now.
Right.
Fun.
Not fun. Okay.
I was going to say Democratic debates, but I did not, because it's really widespread. It goes on both sides of the aisle there.
Yeah.
So they're not really fun right now.
Yeah, let's just say these are all the things that suck the fun out of people.
Yes, suck the tentacles and stuff. Yes, that's an appropriate word.
I don't know if we're allowed to say that on
suck.
Yeah.
Suck. No, I don't think we could say so. Maybe we could say suck.
Yeah. Well,
how many times can we say suck?
Well, in the literal sense, they really do suck the fun out of life.
Yes. All right.
So that's an appropriate use of the word.
That is an appropriate word, use of that word for sure. So, all right, let's go. You got me sidetracked here with sucking. Suck. Okay, that sucks. No more sucking. All right.
Okay.
Just cut that out.
That sucks. Okay, go ahead.
All right, so we have these tentacles. They're wrapped around our little hearts. They're making us not be free. They're making our hearts not be pure, and they're not really kind of authentically us. So then we have these external events that trigger us. So let's talk about what are some of these triggers. We have a long list, but let's just do a few.
Okay. So we've come up with a list of triggers, and we're not sure we've covered all the possible triggers. I mean, obviously there can be many, but we've done our best. And these triggers relate to our basic fundamental needs or motivations as humans, which are, number one, our need for survival. And that includes being safe, getting fed, getting enough sleep, having time to do what we need. And our second basic fundamental need has to do with social issues. We are social beings.
That could have to do with our complete obsession with social media, or what I call anti-social media.
Yes, because, that makes sense. We're so hungry for connection with others. So we need to make those connections and bonds with our families and our friends.
In real life, IRL.
Yeah, right. But the third basic fundamental need is also it's a different need. It's our individuation and differentiation from others. So kind of the opposite of the social one. So as much as we're social beings, we also need to have our own identities and discover what makes us different from everyone else.
And that will vary from different countries and different cultures.
Yeah, totally.
In America, we're all like complete individuality.
Yes,
like everyone is encouraged to be individual.
Yes. Individuality is very important in more wood-like cultures. Like in the U.S. is a very wood culture.
Germany is wood. Russia is wood.
In metal cultures, like in Japan, the individuality or differentiation is less extreme.
Yeah, I remember one time we were in that workshop, and this man, we were talking about metal, and he stood up, and he was Japanese, and he said, in Japan, if you have a piece of wood and one nail is standing up, we like to push it back down in.
Yeah, so they're all even.
And I'm like, there's your metal culture right there. Do not be the nail that's up. You will get hammered down. Probably very politely, though. But.
Yes, because they prize the social belonging higher than the individuation.
Yeah.
But that's, that's just different social ways of being. But every human being needs all those three things.
So those are the three needs that are related to our biggest triggers in life. So what are the triggers? Here we go. I'm going to let you take these beginning wonderful triggers.
Wonderful, fun stuff. Okay, so the first one is fear. Now, this one was brought up a lot in the Facebook group, so we had to address this one first. And it comes up in our lives all the time because of our need for safety. But it's also our need for our basic resources, such as our need to eat and sleep. So it's a major trigger for the feeling of lack, which triggers the overindulgence tentacle, for example, or giving into those temptations and addictions, or maybe feeling jealousy or being apathetic. So it might shut down, your desires or freeze, a feeling of freeze. So fear, which is also stress and anxiety, triggers all those kinds of things.
So let's just say you log into your bank account in the morning and you discover you're overdrawn your account. Now that's going to trigger all kinds of things like the dominoes. I also say look out for the domino ones. So if you have some tentacles around maybe finances or security, guess what? They're going to get activated. Maybe even some anger at someone or something you think caused the situation. Maybe they're wrong. Maybe they're right. Maybe you have feelings of lack of self-worth. And then you try to fill that void. You just go and you maybe do something like overeat or, over-exercise or do something overindulgent to just kind of work on. There's so many feelings that this event can trigger. But like you said, I think the first one is definitely fear. So could we say, Lita, that the trigger is a feeling?
Totally. We first experience...
Like you feel?
Yeah, I think that's really what these triggers are, a feeling. We first experience a feeling, which is a normal response. But then the past comes up and rears its ugly kraken head coming out of the sea. Yes, with its tentacles. And then we remember the past circumstances that this trigger is reminding us of. And suddenly it's happening in a super emotional way. And it's more than the present circumstances really account for. We're overreacting.
Definitely. And, for those of you who think the kraken's too scary, just think of the friendly octopus.
Yes.
Okay, so then maybe you limit yours to 8 if you do the octopus. Yes. Okay, so if you look at some of these triggers, like sleep deprivation, hunger, being, I think constantly being late for something. Essentially, these triggers have to do with the scarcity of your resources. Think of it. Sleep, hungry, don't have enough time. Those are going to trigger a whole number of tentacles. I think we can call this trigger the hangry trigger.
The hangry trigger.
Let's go with the hangry one.
Yes.
Okay, it's a hangry. It's your resources. It's your most precious resources.
Yes, so because fundamentally you're having trouble taking care of yourself, probably due to outside circumstances, and your self-care is suffering. So now you might be overindulging on food because you're so hungry and you feel so low energy.
And you might not be making the best choices of that food.
Yeah, and maybe you feel like you need to eat more and you hate being late. So guess what? You're angry. You're hangry.
Yeah, you're hangry.
Or maybe
it's the hangry tentacle.
Or worse, or not worse, but just as bad, you might just be really low energy. So you become apathetic and you can't do anything.
Yeah, you lose all your diligence because you need to refuel, take care of yourself. It's your domino triggers for sure.
Yes.
And it just goes down that road of like, you think you don't have time to cook a good meal. So you get something, maybe fast food. Then you feel like you don't have enough time because you're tired and you're hangry. So you don't exercise. It just goes down, down, down. So maybe that diligence you had of taking care of yourself.
Totally. Now, these are interesting triggers because these events can have a normal response. The normal response is you don't get emotional at all. You just go and do what needs to be done.
Like if you need sleep, go to sleep.
Exactly. Like you sleep if you're sleep deprived. You eat if you're hungry. And, you have to say the big, scary 2-letter word, N-O. No.
Yeah, which a lot of people had a lot of trouble with.
Yeah, so then you can have the time you need to do the things you want to do if you're willing to say no. But there's no big emotional upset. You just take the steps needed. That's an untriggered response.
Yeah, that's my oxygen mask first idea. We've talked about that a lot. I think that is a good thing, and you might have to work on that. Maybe it's an unused muscle that you have to kind of or maybe you used to do it and you don't. And so like you have to reintroduce that habit of not reacting or overreacting.
Absolutely.
We didn't talk about the many feelings of guilt that people get from the tentacles in the last podcast. People told us guilt. But isn't that guilt like a major trigger? I think it's right up there with fear.
Yeah, and you can think of it also as a result of the tentacles influencing your behavior. For example, if you give in to temptation or you overindulge, then you might be racked with guilt as a result
of overindulging.
Right.
So the guilt results from the tentacles' behavior.
Yes, but I think you're right. Also, guilt can trigger some of the tentacles because if someone makes you feel guilty for behaving, quote unquote, badly, maybe you wouldn't have felt guilty before that, but now you feel guilty and then it triggers your tentacles. So it could be like a trigger.
Yeah, we could do a whole podcast on fear and guilt.
Yes,
just
totally.
on those two.
That could be arranged.
That's pretty funny. That could be arranged. We'll put that on the list.
And, it's such a big topic that, guilt is, that there's a whole ghost point in the 13 ghost points treatment that deals with guilt.
Yeah, and I think pod 29, don't just check it, but I think it's pod 29. We talked about the ghost points. And if you're listening and you want to understand more, I'm pretty sure it's pod 29.
Go back to pod 29. And yes, but we didn't talk that much about guilt as part of the treatment. So let's add that to our future topics list.
Oh yeah, let's put that on the fun. Boy, we are just all about fun. Not today. Oh my God.
I aim to please.
Yes. All right, so what's the next trigger?
Okay, the next... Is that a gun?
That was a trigger. Yeah, sorry.
Right. Okay, I got it.
That was a little wimpy gun.
That was a wimpy... Okay.
I'm non-violent and non-gun.
We're, these days you got to be careful about your triggers. Okay, so the next...
literally.
Yeah, right? Literally. So the next trigger is related to our need to be social beings. So we call this one disconnect, or you can just think of it as loneliness. But this is a huge one, and it doesn't necessarily show up for everyone every day. But when it does, it's a doozy. And some people do feel this every single day. And that's like really lousy if it happens regularly.
Yeah, I think that is a big one. Disconnect is a result of something in your life that's making you feel lonely, isolated, maybe even betrayed, like a heartbreak, like if you're heartbroken. So it could be a big event, like your partner cheating on you or leaving you or just breaking up with you, or, maybe even like a best friend, just kind of, you have a fight and then you're heartbroken.
Right. Or what if someone dies and you have to deal with the grief of that loss?
That's really what it's about too.
Yeah. It's grief of even it's betrayal or someone died. Yeah.
Could be someone, at work that's maybe a little snippy with you that you've always gotten along with and you don't know why. So now you feel left out, and maybe it triggers all the kind of feelings that you had in the past, like nobody likes me, and then you fall into apathy or jealousy or envy.
Yes, and that's a good reason to now maybe overindulge and eat a lot of sugar and maybe like partake in too much social media.
Anti-social media, yes. Yeah. I mean, it's anti-social for sure because it's the ultimate disconnect. We think that we're connecting, but we're not.
It feels like connection, but when you put that phone down and go to sleep, how much more connected are you really?
I know. I was walking the dog in the park the other day, and I saw all these couples and families with little kids. They're all on these blankets. I'm like, oh, that's really cool. And then I look, they're all on their devices. Jeez. It was like I was looking at like a movie or something. But I'm not judging, no judgment. And also it was super quiet.
Yeah, that is
talking,
weird.
Nobody was laughing.
Yeah.
They were just on their phones. I mean, to me, that's not really social.
We're kind of dating ourselves, but do you remember the old days like Saturday in the park? Every day's the 4th of July.
Oh my God.
That was Chicago, I think. But anyway.
Saturday in the park. I think it was the 4th of July.
But they were not on their phones. They were having fun.
They were not on their phones, and they were making noise, and they were laughing, and they were having heart-to-heart conversations.
Now we're flipping through our Instagram and our Facebook and looking for the hearts and the likes, and you have people right next to you, like right in the same room or on the subway or in a restaurant. I mean, even when you walk into like a Starbucks, it's quiet.
Yeah.
Like,
now it's quiet. I know you said that before. So we're on our little rant here. Should we get back to the topic?
Yes. Maybe only the library should be quiet.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. So, all right. So how is this connection, how's it going to get back to the feeling of disconnect?
Okay, so we're increasingly becoming a culture of more disconnect.
Anti-social media.
As we just explained. And so that's why this is such a big trigger. Certainly, for me as a kid, I felt rejected by my peers, when kids didn't like me. Like I had this big episode in 6th grade, the Mean Girls ganged up on me.
That was pre-Mean Girls.
That was pre-Mean Girls movie.
They were still mean though.
And I didn't have any friends. And so then that tentacle wrapped around my heart. And whenever I got into a group situation, a good one, my feelings of disconnect would arise when I felt awkward and unable to make new friends. And then suddenly my view of what was actually happening around me was skewed. And I would see evidence of people not liking me or me not belonging and even wishing I could be like so-and-so and feeling jealous. And it was downhill from there.
Dominoes. Tick, 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 tick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I'd overeat. Oh, God, it's just, dominoes.
It was just a story.
And it started with the subtlest body language
Yeah.
that was a trigger for me to suddenly feel disconnected, and down the rabbit hole I would go. It was horrible.
Yeah. And, in the next podcast, you just made me think we're scheduled to be talking about how to remove those tentacles. And I know how you did it. So it's a great way that we're going to talk about with people. But, for now, we just wanted to get people to start to think. So if you're listening to this, it's a 2-step process. First, the triggers. You have to just kind of like see what's going on, be the observer. We talked about that a lot in the beginning of the podcast. Be the observer in your life and see, some are a big deal, some are not a big deal. But if they cause feelings to arise, then the tentacles come through like the big monsters.
Our krakens.
Yes, release the krakens. Or if that's too violent for you, go with the gentle octopus.
All right.
But are there any more triggers? I'm not sure I want to hear any more, but no.
I'm sure there are tons.
And
but
how about any more for today?
for today, the next one is related to our fundamental need to define ourselves and individuate. And those triggers we are calling the annoyances.
Ah, the annoyances.
Don't
It
we
just
love
keeps
them?
getting deeper, right?
Yes.
This fun keeps going on. This is probably one of my personal hourly triggers.
Yes.
I've been working on it. I really, really have been working on it. But energetically, I'm a wood is my constitution, and I think wood is particularly susceptible to annoyances.
Yes, annoyances. We all have them, but I do think Jay might be right that wood seems to be particularly annoyed by them. Let's say your partner does something on a daily basis and you ask them to stop and then they don't. And then you start to get pissed. And before you know it, it triggers your deep-seated anger tentacle. You're furious for no reason.
And you don't even know why. And then if you don't look at this,
No.
you just think you're a-hole
Yeah,
or whatever.
right.
But go back and do the work and find out when it started. Who put that tentacle in there?
Yeah, and that little annoyance really isn't bad enough to cause such anger.
Yeah.
But it becomes like this powder keg of energy bursting out.
Yeah, I really had that when I was younger, and I've done a lot of work. But let's talk about if something triggers that anger, it could be hard to contain. It feels like a volcano about to burst.
Yes, and we should also
or
look
about to blow, I guess.
Yeah. So we look at anger and really examine that, but also pride, because you think you're right and they're wrong, and that's why you're annoyed.
Is it pride and ego?
Yeah, pride and ego.
That's totally it. I think, why do you think that your way is better than the other person's way? There's really almost always another way to do something. But for some reason, that is an annoyance to people.
Yes, you think, your way is better, and that's okay that you're annoyed, but your pride makes you feel justified in doing it your way.
You could think that they think you're stupid or that you're lazy or their way is just not efficient and you need to be super efficient. All of these could be triggers.
Yes.
So why should we be aware of these triggers?
Okay, so let's say you are triggered. Now you go into some strange response. Then any one of these tentacles rear their ugly suction cups. And
Which we know sucks.
Yes, and cause all sorts of strange scenarios in your life and how you think. And so we're thinking the triggers are very important. We need to be aware of them because this response happens so fast.
Well, and then you start to think there's something wrong with you.
Yeah.
I'm emotional. There's something wrong with me. I'm broken. I'm always like this. I've always been like this. That doesn't mean it's right.
Yeah. And, why am I so reactive?
Yeah.
There's a reason you have a trigger.
So let's unwind this a little bit. Let's give them a little bit tentacle homework. Some
Tentacle
trigger homework.
Yes.
Let's trigger up some homework.
Right. Oh, good. I like that. So we can collectively watch ourselves.
Yeah, well, we say it all the time, like Eckhart says.
Yes,
Let's be the
Eckhart
watchers.
Tolle.
Let's be the observers.
Yes.
Let's take a look at what's going on in our own lives, not at your
Yes.
partners, not at your kids, not at your coworkers, not at your dogs. Look at yourself. Be
Yes.
accountable.
If you if you take this homework and watch someone else, you're going to get triggered.
Yeah.
So don't do that.
Don't do it. Don't do it.
No.
I'm giving you the head up right now. Look at your own.
Eckhart Tolle says watch ourselves. So
Yes.
this is about watching yourselves. And what we want you to do is just notice, what are your particular triggers, different from everyone else's triggers? You know, you could think also of the groups of triggers. Are yours more related to survival, safety, fear? Are yours more related to social issues and connection? Or is it more about your individuality and what makes you different from everyone else? So which triggers really get you going?
So who's pulling your trigger?
Right.
Right. So is it a group of people? Is it a close person? Is it yourself? Is it external? Is it
Yes.
internal? Like, what is driving you to be emotional?
Yeah,
To get going.
exactly.
All right.
To be
so on the
emotional.
next podcast, we're going to finally put this all together. We've been dropping you the breadcrumbs and giving you the little instructions here. And remember, this is all about happiness.
Right.
You know,
Yes.
really, we promise this is happy on the way to happiness.
Yes, that's the name of the series we're doing.
You know, we embarked on this tentacle stuff because we wanted to help people get happier and have a free heart. Free heart is a pure heart. Pure
Yes.
heart is a free heart.
Yes.
This is a great way to live happier. So stay with us. Keep going. We're almost there. We have one more episode on these tentacles and triggers and what else we're calling them.
Tendrils, tentacles, and triggers.
Oh my.
Oh my.
Tentacles, tendrils, and triggers. Oh my. Okay, so if you want your heart to be free, you got to start unwrapping these tentacles. You got to look at the triggers that's triggering you and start to
Unwind it.
unwind it and
Yay.
be happy.
Yay.
Good. That's it.
That's
Bye.
it.
Happy trails to you until we meet again.
You've been listening to the Inspired Action Podcast, and you've reached the end. Woohoo! Why not celebrate a little bit and click that subscribe button right there? We love having you with us on this journey, and we want it to continue.
You can also rate and review this podcast. And if you have already, thank you so much. We read all reviews, and your reviews help other people find this podcast as well. You can also be a part of this podcast yourself by submitting a voice recording message and emailing it to us at lita@inspiredactionpodcast.com or jay@inspiredactionpodcast.com.
And if you want, you can join our Facebook group or follow us on Instagram.
Join us next week for another Inspired Action conversation. And thank you for listening.
Thanks for listening, and remember to hug the dog.